Okay, good afternoon, Fiji Graduate Nation. This is David Fry, one of the trustees with the Beechwood Educational Foundation, and I'm very pleased and honored to be joined this afternoon by Brother Harry Lamberson, Zeta Fiji class of 1965, joining us from his winter home down in Marco Island, Florida, where he'll be for a few more weeks before he heads back to Lake Forest, Illinois, where his other residence is located. So, Brother Lamberson, first of all, thank you so much for agreeing to spend a few minutes with us this afternoon, as well as for your continued support of the goals and endeavors of the Beechwood Educational Foundation to support the undergraduate chapter to help them develop both academic skills and excellence, as well as to help them develop leadership skills that will help them in their days following their time at Zeta chapter in Indiana University. So just a couple of questions for you, Brother Lamberson. First of all, what would you consider to be some of your best memories of time at Zeta chapter in Indiana University?
Well, I would say the first would be when I came down to campus as a freshman and met my pledge brothers. I didn't know any of them. I lived in the house. In fact, all 4 years, the majority of our class lived in the house all 4 years. But I think working with them, getting to know them over our freshman year, and then more so in our sophomore, junior, senior years, some really great relationships were developed. And then all of a sudden we graduated. Some went to graduate school, some went to the job market, some went to the military, and we sort of lost contact with one another. And so 5 years after our graduation, and that would be 2 years after my graduation from law school, I decided I wanted to get everybody together. And so I called 2 or 3 of the brothers that I had had contact with and asked if we arranged a reunion in Bloomington, would they come and what did they think? And I got positive responses. So in the summer of 1970, 5 years after our graduation, all of our pledge class brothers were invited back to IU for a weekend reunion. It was a great success. We had over 50% of our class come, mostly with spouses. And the sentiment was, let's do it again. And so 5 years after that, we did it again back in Bloomington, and every 5 years thereafter.
Oh, that's
until
terrific.
Our last one was supposed to be in October of 2020, our 55th reunion. But because of the COVID, the Graduate Hotel in Bloomington canceled our reservations and said they couldn't accommodate us. So we rescheduled it to October 21, and we had a great turnout, a great weekend. And so there are pledge brothers that I met when I was 18 that I've kept in contact with right up to the present. Many of them I've attended one or more, in some cases, all of our reunions that are held every 5 years. So it's been very satisfying to maintain those relationships now that we're all 80 years old or older.
Well, I think that dedication to staying in touch, clearly, is exemplifies the catchphrase of "not for college days alone." That's for sure. Based
Exactly.
upon that, but that's a great story. Well,
Actually, if you don't mind, I think there's something else in terms of memory, and this might be helpful to those who to read or see this profile, and that is that I am one that believes, and I began to believe this about 2 or 3 years in the law practice, that my 4 years at Zeta was a life-changing event. And by that, I mean that 2 or 3 days before classes were to begin our freshman year, our 2 pledge trainers came to meet with our pledge class. And they said they had some rules. And they started spitting out these rules that started with, Monday through Friday, you'll be up at 7, dressed and eat breakfast and out of the house by 8. And you're not expected back till 4:30 in the afternoon. And other than a 45-minute lunch break, which either the first or second lunch, and we were to come back for lunch.
Right.
And when you weren't in class, and most of us were taking maybe 3 classes a day or possibly 4, there would be several hours of free time. During that time, we were told we had to be in a certain room of the old library, which was at the north end of the woods behind the Fiji house.
Mm-hmm.
And that it would be proctored by sophomores. They would have our schedule. And if we weren't there about 10 minutes, within 10 minutes after our last class ended and didn't show up, they put it differently, but what they meant is there would be consequences. And then we were told we'd come back at 4:30. In those days, the pledge class did the housekeeping. We would have to do light housekeeping, dinner at 5:30, and study table at 6:30. And study table with a 20-minute break ended at 10. And then we were told we'd shower, and we were all swept up in the 3rd floor dorm.
Yep.
But that was the routine that we were told. And at the time, we thought it was somewhere like an imposition, but we didn't, we actually had discussions, they're giving us like 30 or 35 hours a week to study, and the first day of school hasn't started. And obviously what the goal of the fraternity was to achieve the best possible outcome academically for every freshman. And even after our freshman year was over and we no longer were subject to these rules, many maintained some of the discipline or the time management skills that were imposed on us throughout the remainder of college or graduate school. I know in my case at law school, I did. And I truly believe that while I hope I would have graduated without that kind of influence upon us as freshmen, I know for certain that my academic achievements, both at IU and at Michigan Law School, would not have been as good as they were absent that kind of discipline that was imposed upon us our freshman year.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, that same sort of discipline was instilled upon me as a pledge in 1981. We had the exact same schedule that you just mentioned in terms of being out of the house to go to class. And when you weren't in class, we were on the 5th floor of the Lilly Library in a certain section, and we were expected to be there until 4 o'clock when we traipsed back across campus to do the daily cleaning of the house. So, and then study table was every night after dinner till 10 o'clock. So that continued even, and might to this day be something very similar. So that's great. Thanks for sharing that.
There was one other memory, Dave, I'll share with you. I don't want to be too long, but my senior year, I was selected on the IU Foundation Steering Committee and worked on that for the entire school year. It was a great experience being a part of the Little 500 weekend and all that it did with its net proceeds going to undergraduate students who worked. But what really capped it off was the Fijis won the Little 500 in 1965.
Oh, that's great.
And it was within a few weeks, graduation occurred and we went off on our separate ways. But I can't tell you of a more meaningful senior year being involved with the foundation steering committee and the race and watching our team win and what it meant to the house. It was truly a wonderful experience, and all of us who were there then and saw the race and that weekend, none of us had ever forgotten about it.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Well, thanks so much for sharing those stories. One last question as we wrap things up. Just kind of curious to know what has compelled you to support the Beechwood Educational Foundation over the years with your contributions and your donations.
Well, Dave, I think I would have to say this all started in spring of 2013 when I received a call one day from Hank Orm. Hank is a class of 66 Zeta Phi Gam. He and I had kept in touch over the many years. He was a member of the Point of Woods in Benton Harbor, Michigan, and asked if I would like to come over and spend a day at the Point and meet a few Fijis from younger than us. And we brought up the date on what would happen, what was happening with the house, and we'd have lunch and play a round of golf. So I said, sure, and we picked a date and I drove over. We were in Lake Forest at the time, so it was only about a 2.5-hour drive. And that's when I first met Jeff Andrus. He was at that meeting.
Okay.
Pete King participated in the meeting via phone. And then Jeff Fettig was supposed to play golf with us that afternoon, but a conflict at Whirlpool kept him from the golf course. But in any event, Pete King, I was given some papers by Jeff Andrus, and Pete King went to tell me the entire story of how the university wanted to acquire the 631 East 3rd property to expand the law school, and that they wanted to buy the Fiji house and where our new house would be located and the details of the transaction and so forth. Pete did a wonderful job. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of that meeting, they asked, well, what do you think? And I said, well, my initial reaction is, it sounds to me like a once in a lifetime opportunity that we have to do. Mm-hmm. And I was very impressed with the terms of the deal, more impressed with the location of the new house, which I felt was superior to the 631 location, which we always felt when we were in school was a great location, but it wasn't centrally located like the Woodlawn location is. And so I was asked if I would support this effort, both financially and time-wise, and I said I would. And they asked if I would be the class captain for the class of 65 and soliciting my pledge brothers, and I said I would. Okay. At that point, the university had not approved this transaction. And I was told that one prior transaction several years earlier was proposed where we were going to build the house next to the Alpha Chi Omega sorority on North Jordan. And that got rejected by the IU Board of Trustees. So everyone was, I guess, holding their breath. So I waited until I heard that IU did, in fact, approve it. And I was told by Jeff Andrus that some second century capital campaign materials were being put together, and as a class rep, I would be receiving those. And I said, fine, but I couldn't wait to share the news, so I started calling some of my pledge brothers, and I had current information because we had had our 2010 class reunion, and I had current email and phone numbers of members of our class, and to just share with them what basically Pete King had shared with me and how exciting it was. Mm-hmm. Subsequently, I received the offering, or the, not offering material, the solicitation materials. They were extremely well done. I don't know who was involved in doing them. I'm sure both Pete and Jeff were, but others as well. And I started contacting each of my pledge brothers, first by email, asking to either speak with them by phone or in some cases where it was convenient to meet with them face to face. Okay. And I got a very positive response when each time I had an opportunity to speak with one and give them the entire background. No one declined participation. Everyone that I spoke with said, it sounds great. And of course, the content of my pitch was basically taking what Pete King had told me in the spring of 2013. But my solicitation continued in 14 and 15, and we got a very high percentage of the brothers to agree to contribute and support it. And then we were scheduling our 50th reunion in October of 2015. It was going to be held in the Indiana Memorial Union. We had good attendance because it was our 50th. And I asked Pete King if he would come to our class dinner and invite his wife if he'd like to, but to tell us a little bit about what was happening now in 2015, because the transaction had closed, the construction was just beginning. And so Pete did. He escorted us around the old house for a tour because we knew it would be the last time we'd see 631.
Right.
And then he took us to the new address, and the foundation had been laid. It was a beautiful, sunny, crisp morning. He gave us each a hard hat, Fiji hard hat, so we could tour the property, and we kept that.
Okay.
And it turned out there were two Fiji brothers who one had attended one prior reunion, one had not attended any, but they came to our 50th. And so with that background, I asked for a personal meeting with each of them while we were at the union before we departed on Sunday afternoon. I made a quick pitch. They both agreed to support it. And that meant that every member of our class who was then living, who had graduated from IU and was initiated in the Phi Gamma Delta, committed to support. The only exception were 8 of our pledge brothers before the solicitation began had passed away. And so we decided at our 50th reunion that all of us who were there, all of us who had contributed and made our own personal pledge, would make an additional contribution in memory of the 8 pledge brothers, some of whom were so loyal they attended every single one of our 5-year reunions up till the time they passed away.
Oh, that's
and so we did that, and that pretty much completed my role as class captain, except I kept getting periodic updates from either Pete King or Jeff Andrus, and I saw things were progressing nicely. And then one day I got a beautiful letter from Pete King who said we're having a dedication in December of 16, and I was invited. And furthermore, if I could be there by 10 o'clock that morning, he asked if I could attend the ceremony in the new chapter room. That was going to be limited because of the size and the fact that there were actives that would be participating. And finally, he asked if I would speak at the dedication. And I told him over the phone I was honored by his invitation, and I, of course, would be there. I flew up the day before from Florida, and we had a nice Fiji dinner in Indianapolis that night with some of the class of 64 and 65 that were able to put together at the last minute. And I did ask Pete, I said, what is it that you want me to speak about? What is it, since there will be other speakers talking about the house and all that went into it? And his response was, well, you've had an incredible participation by members of your class in raising money to support this project. And to our knowledge, he said, you're the only class that has met every 5 years as a formal reunion among your class members. And he said, if you don't mind, why don't you talk a little bit about those things?
Yeah.
So I did. And when I left Bloomington late on Sunday, flew back to Florida, I had acquired between my initial call from Hank Horn in the spring of 2013 until the flight back home in December of 16, a great appreciation for all that the Beechwood Educational Foundation did in connection with the new house and what it continues to do on behalf of undergraduates. And so I don't view that my continuing contributions were compelled in any way. What they were is greater appreciation, and I was motivated to continue to help in any way I could for as long as I'm able to, because I truly believe that Zeta chapter in my 4 years at IU living at Zeta has done far more for me than I can ever do for it.
Wow, that's very heartfelt words, and thank you so much for sharing your experiences, and also your support of not just Zeta Chapter, but also the Beechwood Educational Foundation. And I will let the brothers know who watch this video that on the website where this video will appear, you'll also be able to see a full profile of Brother Lamberson, and including his contact information about how to reach him by phone and by email. So again, Brother Hares, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and we look forward to talking again soon.
Well, Dave, thank you so much for arranging this, and I'm honored by the Beechwood Educational Foundation desiring to talk with me. So thank you very much.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.